And very nice to see all of you. Very nice to know that some of you are watching at home. At least I hope you are. I'm going to assume you are anyway. And yeah, nice to be here and see lots of familiar faces as well as some faces who are new to me. So tonight I'm going to be talking about the Vajra. We are looking, of course, in this series at symbols from the Tantra, the Vajrayana as it's called. And the Vajra perhaps is the central symbol. It gives the Vajrayana its name. The Vajrayana is, in a way, the way of the Vajra. And so without understanding the Vajra, we don't really know what the Tantra is. Having said that, you can't sort of grasp these symbols just intellectually. I'm going to be trying to evoke, point to, illustrate a little bit some of the symbolism of the Vajra. But really you have to encounter the Vajra for yourself. You have to dwell on it, reflect on it, and ultimately find the Vajra within your own hearts and minds, because it's a symbol pointing to our true nature. It's not just, well, it isn't really an external object, although it gets us so far in our Dharma lives. Perhaps we begin our Dharma lives by finding out more information about Buddhism that you can look up online or whatever. I tried, with Suryanagar's help, seeing what ChatGPT had to say about the symbolism of the Vajra. And you could look that up and see what it has to say. And it wasn't wrong. You have to find your own associations that are encapsulated in the larger associations of the symbol and find your own relationship with it. That's what I'm trying to say. On the shrine, perhaps at home you might zoom in now on the shrine, and if you're sitting in the room you might not be able to see this figure very well. Come up and have a look. There's this I think this rather incredible, awesome figure on the shrine, sitting at the foot of the Buddha, at the foot of the shrine. He's called Vajrakilaya, and he wields not one but two Vajras in two of his 6 arms. And I want to come back to Vajrakilaya. He's become a symbol that has started to resonate with me sometime just a few years ago. Well, actually, going back a few more years. But come and have a look at this image of Vajrakilaya. Approach him with respect. That's what you should do with all Buddha images, but particularly with some wrathful images. They're not to be toyed with. They're not. So the Vajra in the Tantra, in Indian symbolism, probably going back before the Tantra, the Vajra is likened to, or is said to be, the diamond thunderbolt. The diamond thunderbolt. So you've got two things there, two metaphors for the Vajra, and they're pointing to different aspects of this symbol. The diamond is said to be, possibly is, I don't know, the hardest substance known to human beings. You can imagine in ancient times it really was the hardest substance. I don't know if we've developed, harder substances, human-made substances now, but the diamond would have been the substance that would cut through any other substance but not be cut itself. And you still get diamond blades, don't you, that are used today. It's the hardest stuff. Of course, it's also scintillatingly beautiful, captivatingly beautiful. It's sort of the most precious substance in a certain sense known to human beings. But it's a diamond that is not just hard in the sense that it cuts, although it does, but also a diamond can't be sullied. It's pure. It's a symbol of something that cannot be tarnished. Yes, it could be covered over with dirt, but you know something about our mind, not our ordinary mind, but the potential enlightened mind that is within us, you should say, that is completely pure and completely incapable of being sullied by anything that we do or anything that happens to us. So that purity of diamond is part of the symbolism of the Vajra. But then you've also got the Thunderbolt. This Thunderbolt, you can imagine in ancient times when people didn't have modern day conveniences and power and electricity, and they didn't understand the forces of nature. You could imagine that the Thunderbolt was the most awesome, terrifying, sublime, inexplicable event in people's lives. Even now, you don't sort of see this so much in the city, but I'm about to go to a retreat centre that Sri Ratna has in the Spanish mountains, Gutialoca. I spent 3 months, 2.5 months, 3 months there last year on a retreat where Maitri Kumara was ordained. And there were times where in the night, well, there were 2 times, I think, where we had thunderstorms in the night. And in the mountains, in the dark, you're living in a very, very simple way. In fact, I mean, we had huts. We were living in these kind of stone, very simple huts. And we did have some solar power and things. But pretty much it was very, very simple and basic. And much of what we did was happening outdoors. And it was about 1,000 meters up in the Sierra Aitana mountains. And then you get this thunderstorm. And you can't help but be wowed, mesmerized even by the power of the thunder and, of course, the lightning which lights up the whole sky. If you've seen sheet lightning, it's just fantastic. Well, this Vajra is also symbolizing the power of a thunderbolt. The power of the thunderbolt, which destroys everything that it touches. It's not just Buddhism and even Hinduism that has made use of this sort of symbol of power. If you think of, Norse mythology and Thor's hammer, that is an equivalent in Nordic mythology of the Vajra, this incredible weapon, you could say, that will destroy the enemies, will destroy Thor's enemies, and will return to his hand, will always be faithful and return to his hand, symbolizing that the power of the hammer, the energy of the hammer, the energy of the Vajra is never dissipated. It's always returns to your hand, and it always returns with the same energy. It's never dissipated. Now, in the Tibetan tradition, the diamond thunderbolt is also represented as a metal ritual object, that Tibetans will use in pujas and other rituals. And it's a stylized thunderbolt. It's more the thunderbolt that's stylized rather than the diamond. So it's the thunderbolt aspect of it that is symbolized in these forms. I've got 2 Vajras here. They're both slightly different. I mean, of course, this is bigger, and this has more spokes at each end. It's a 9-pointed Vajra, and this is a 5-pointed Vajra. Vajrakilaya holds 1 5-pointed Vajra and 1 9-pointed Vajra, ready to hurl at any obstacle that stands in the way of enlightenment. So the enemies that are being destroyed are, well, you could say they're greed, hatred, and delusion. They're not external enemies, even though he is, well, when you get close, trampling on two human figures. He's sort of trampling on them. I think they look quite pleased to be trampled on. I'm going to pass round these two Vajras. So, Surinal, did you want to come and get? So while I'm talking, pass them round, and Michael, the 9-pointed one, and just have a feel it, hold it in your hand, and if you want to, you could. Well, it's also a symbol of commitment, and if you want to, it can represent your aspiration and even commitment. So you don't sort of hold the Vajra lightly, just sort of hold it before passing it on. Just feel its weight and its energy. The diamond thunderbolt. So spiritual power is not something that many people associate with Buddhism. I was going to say GPT, but it probably knows everything, doesn't it? So, but when most people think of Buddhism, they think in terms of, what do you think in terms of peace, love, compassion, equanimity, stillness, maybe freedom? They're the classic images. When you go to a garden centre and you get images of the Buddha on a lotus, he always looks very peaceful, and it's also almost become a bit of a cliche that Buddhism is about being peaceful and nice. Actually, that's the. I don't know if you've had this when you've told friends that you're a Buddhist, and sometimes they, I don't know if you have lost your temper or something, they say, "Oh, that's not very Buddhist." That's not very Buddhist of you. Exemplifying already, no matter where you are and how long you've been practicing, this equanimity and stillness and peace and love, this love that will not, according to popular images of Buddhism, won't ruffle any feathers and will be perfectly nice. Well, actually, Buddhism isn't like that. It is also associated with power, as well as, love, unconditional love. But I don't think niceness ever entered into Buddhism. If you join our order, some of you in the room have asked for ordination. Some of you are ordained, I know, I can see. But some of you may have asked for ordination into the Triratna Buddhist order. If you, I do recommend considering that I think that is the most meaningful thing that I've ever done with my life, and I think our order at its best anyway is a force for good in the world, and it's not very nice at times being in the order. Order members, I used to think, will just be nice, but they're not always nice, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing, because nice can imply, at least in England, a certain, certain sort of reluctance to avoid, to face the truth, a reluctance to be honest and fearless and courageous. It can be a cop-out, being nice, and that's not what Buddhism is about. So the Vajra is certainly not nice. It is a force of destruction. That's what it's symbolizing, a force of destruction. I'll come on to, in a way, why destruction is an important aspect of Buddhism. But maybe I'll come on to that later. Now, it's also a force of energy. The thunderbolt, you can imagine, was, it is still a tremendous symbol for energy, a force of energy. The Vajra is infinite energy held together in a completely contained way. So if you hold the Vajra, you're wielding the boundless energy of the enlightened mind. And again, we don't always think of the Buddha as being energetic, possibly because he's often depicted with his eyes half closed or fully closed in meditation. But inside his mind, there is this boundless energy, completely contained, completely held. It's energy they've been liberated. The sort of egotism takes a heck of a lot of energy. We may not always think that. I sometimes think, I don't have a lot of energy. In the mornings, I think I've got no energy. But actually, we are energy. Bhante Sangharakshita makes this point. It's just that the energy somehow got congealed or trapped or tied up in the wrong sort of way or stultified. We are embodiments of energy. That's what we are. Everything is, actually. It's like, splitting the atom. Human beings realized that everything has incredible energy locked up within it. Form has, it's sort of energy crystallized. And the Vajras that are being passed around, you could think of that as energy crystallized. Now, the power and the energy of the enlightened mind is never used in a way that is coercive. It's never used in a way that would be unskillful. It's always for the purposes of liberating the mind to enlightenment. So it's somehow very difficult for us to imagine this. When we think of power and energy and even force, we tend to think in terms of violence. We tend to think in terms of something unskillful. It's quite difficult for us to imagine a force, a power, an energy that is wielded completely skillfully and has no coercive component to it. It's interesting that in Buddhism, all the figures, including Vajrakilaya, but a more well-known figure that you might have come across is Padmasambhava. Padmasambhava also holds a Vajra, and he is also associated with transformation of the darker forces within the human heart and mind. And the emphasis there is on transformation. So although he destroys his enemies, he doesn't actually really destroy them. What he does is he converts the demons. He converts them into supports for the Dharma. So, for example, the demon of hatred, and we all have that demon somewhere in us, at least in the seeds of hatred, the seeds of anger, the seeds of ill will are within us. That, in a way, is an obstacle. You could personify it as a demon. What the Vajra does is transform that. What Padmasambhava does, what Vajrakilaya does, is transform that energy of hatred, of anger, into wisdom. Into wisdom. Not destroy the anger, not suppress it, it transforms it, it liberates it into a more skillful direction, into wisdom. So these figures, Vajrakilaya, Padmasambhava, and other figures from the Vajrayana who wield the Vajra, Vajrapani is another one, Vajrasat, they're figures of compassion. They're figures of compassion. So it's power in the most positive sense. In the most positive sense. So you might want to think about, well, how do you relate to power? and this notion of power. I think some postmodern thinkers now sort of analyse all human relationships in terms of power, and I think that's a real shame and a travesty of what human beings are capable of in terms of relating to each other. Not all relationships can be analysed, I think, truly in terms of power. But nevertheless, we do have power as human beings. And do we have positive or negative associations with that? What do we think of power? Just worth thinking about. Okay, well, I'm going to come back to talking a little bit more about power and energy and some of its associated qualities. But I want to now look at the Vajra itself, at least in its stylized form. So hopefully you've all had a chance to well, if you haven't in this room anyway, had a chance to look at the Vajra. It'll be coming round, and if you're at home, maybe look it up. The Vajra in its stylized form is also rich in symbolism. The way it's constructed is rich in symbolism. And I just want to at least start illustrating that as best I can, hinting at that as best I can. In the center of the Vajra in its stylized form is like an egg shape, a sort of sphere, but not quite fully round. And that is, in a way, the symbol of absolute reality before any dualism has occurred. This fundamental dualism that we sort of normally exist within, of a me in here and a world out there, or the dualism of samsara and nirvana, unenlightened existence and enlightened existence. That dualism is in a way not the absolute fundamental reality. This inner sphere, this egg, is not yet divided, it's unified, it's one whole. It's trying to say that if you could really see the truth from an enlightened perspective, there wouldn't be this dualism. There wouldn't even, in the end, be a difference between samsara and nirvana. In the end, you would transcend even that distinction of unenlightenment and enlightenment. It's the primordial wholeness. That's what is being pointed to. I say primordial and I say before, but actually it's not that Buddhism doesn't have a sort of a myth where there was a point in time where everything was whole and then there was a fall. It's not that there is a single point when creation happened or the fall happened. What's being pointed to is something that in a way is outside of time. So you could say that the division that occurs, the duality that occurs that we all live in, is happening all the time. It's happening all the time. It's an eternal process. Yeah. So the next thing that happens, the Vajra has got it starts having two lotuses. There's the central egg-shaped thing, and then there are two stylized lotuses, and that is, in a way, reality splitting into this dualistic state. The lotuses, of course, are a symbol of unfolding potential, of emergence, you could say. It's a very rich symbol in itself. I'm not going to be able to, well, in a way would have to have another talk to go into the symbolism of the lotus. Anyway, you've got these two lotuses that you could say now represent two worlds emerging from this non-dual reality. One world you could call samsara, and the other world you could call enlightened experience or nirvana. So these two lotuses emerge.
And the Tantra keeps on stressing that this duality is, in a way, a delusion. That the two are two in oneness. So it's not that they become completely the same, but nor are they completely different. And what you have is that all the way running through the Vajra, you've got this central axis that unifies those two worlds, or unites them. Yeah. So you've got this sense of two in oneness. And at its height in the enlightened experience, that is also expressed as wisdom and compassion. That's what the two in oneness looks like. The wisdom aspect of enlightenment is saying, look, you transcend this samsaric realm. You see through it. You see through the empty, mirage, dreamlike nature of this world of duality. You see through that there's a fixed, this notion that there's a fixed separate entity in here and a fixed separate world out there. That is what wisdom recognizes, it, or it emerges from that realization. That's wisdom. It's a sense, it's in order to realize wisdom, you could say you have to leave the world behind. You have to let go of any holding on to anything in this phenomenal world, including self. You have to let go completely. You have to transcend. But then the other aspect of the enlightened mind, which is termed compassion, is a return to this world. It's a returning to this phenomenal world. It's not like the Buddha and enlightenment just leaves this world and rests in some heavenly world. The Buddha returns, as it were, or the enlightened mind returns to this world out of compassion. And from that perspective, samsara and nirvana wouldn't be seen as two separate things. The activity of the Buddha would be in this phenomenal world. The activity of wisdom is compassion. So again, you've got this two in oneness. That's what the two ends of the Vajra are representing. And there's this central spoke that unifies them, unites them. Then you've got, well, I was going to say the spokes, but actually before that, I don't know if you can see it on these stylized Vajras, but you're said to have, emerging from the lotus, and at the base of each spoke is the head of an animal called a makara or makara. I'm not quite sure how you pronounce it. And it's a mythical beast that is also symbolizing the union of opposites, the union of opposites. And this mythical beast is like something like a crocodile. Maybe that doesn't sound very mythical. But the point is that this mythical beast is it's at home in both water and on the earth. It's amphibious. And that's another way of symbolizing the unification of opposites. The unification of opposites. The Tantra is basically saying, look, you don't leave anything behind. You know how, I don't know, conventional thoughts about religion are normally somehow, you get this dualism in theistic religions. You get the devil and God or something. But you shun one and embrace the other, or worship the other. In the Tantra, you don't leave anything behind. Does that make sense? You don't leave the darker forces of the human psyche, the lust, the hatred, the ignorance behind. You take all the energy that's locked up in those forces, those states, and you transform them. And ultimately you realize that they too are empty of any inherent nature. It is all energy. And because it's all energy, it can be transformed and liberated. So that's very different from a theistic notion of good and evil as being completely separate. Do you know what I mean? And one has to be rejected and the other embraced. Anyway, you've got these heads of these beasts, and then out of each of those heads, you've got spokes emerging that curve outwards and then come to a point. So I'm going to talk about the five-pointed Vajra. In the five-pointed Vajra, so you've got the central spoke that unites the two ends, and then you've got at each end 4 more spokes coming up to a point. And at one end, those 5 spokes, the central one and the 4 others, represent the poisons in the unenlightened human consciousness. They're the samsaric poisons. And at the other end, the 5 spokes represent the 5 archetypal Buddhas and their wisdoms. So let's start with the poisons. So the poisons that are first one, well, I don't know about any order in the way you could have them in any order, is aversion or hatred or ill will or anger that is rooted in ill will. All the pushing away that we do. I don't want this. I don't want you. I don't want this situation. All the aversion, all the energy of that pushing away. And in a way, all the hatred in the world is one of those spokes. And as I say, that's a heck of a lot of energy that goes into that ill will. One of the things, if you've been meditating for any length of time, you'll have started to find ill will in yourself. Have you found that? I used to think I was a nice guy until I did the Metta Bhavana, and then I discovered the anger that was already there. I mean, everybody else around me knew it. But I kind of thought, oh, well, no, you're a lovely guy. You sometimes when I teach meditation, I don't teach meditation to newcomers these days very much, but sometimes when you teach the Metta Bhavana, people say, oh, I haven't got anybody I dislike. And, I kind of, you don't want to be rude, do you, when somebody says that, and you think, okay, well, think harder, or, I sometimes say, think of your family members. But one of the giveaways of that statement is that they don't yet know their minds very deeply. Yeah? They don't know their minds very deeply. If you start to know your mind more deeply through meditation, you will discover these poisons. One of them will be ill will. It'll be there. And again, when you discover guilt response that says I mustn't be like this, or I'm an awful person for feeling this, neither of those, or some sort of denial that just cuts ourselves off from it, where we refuse to feel the anger, all of that is unhelpful. What you're trying to do is experience your experience the feelings, acknowledge them, and then don't let yourself act unskillfully from them. Find a way of transforming that energy. Yeah? So that's a tall order. Do you see why you need support and help? And the Vajra is there in a symbolic form giving you that support. It's saying it's possible to transform it. It's possible to transform it. Moving on, another poison is, in a way, the opposite, although in a way it's just the flip side of hatred, which is craving. Try at the dinner table not to, grab the last bit of dessert on the table or whatever it is. But nevertheless, goodness, I've got a lot of energy locked up in desire. And often it sort of feels innocent, like, I just buy things on online. Do you know what I mean? It's very easy just to buy things. Sometimes I buy things and give them to other people, but there is still this craving, and there are probably other manifestations of that craving that I'm not going to go into. You can ask me later, but I know that it runs deep in me. It runs deep. This force of craving. Sometimes it only sort of appears when you can't get what you want. These days, our cravings and our desires are very easily satisfied, almost at the press of a keystroke. So we don't fully experience their force. That's what I'm trying to say. And then you've got conceit as another poison. Conceit is this sense of being number one, being the center of your universe. In a sense, all unenlightened beings have this. All of these poisons we have, but conceit is sometimes quite hidden. Have you found they are about the same as me? About the same in terms of whatever criteria: intelligence, good looks, wealth, success in some way. They're better, or they're not as good, or they're about the same. That comparison, that tendency to always be comparing, not just is conceit, and it's not just comparing. It's like we always want approval, don't we? And we don't want anybody's disapproval. Understandable, but sometimes we're living our lives in a way that is, I don't know, lacking in integrity, simply because we want to gain approval from those around us. So we'll conform to values that we don't really hold or believe in. We'll act in ways that we don't really feel very proud of, simply to gain approval in the eyes of others. In the eyes of others, we want approval, or sometimes it's success. We want success, but you know how sometimes people who make a lot of money, it's not that they're interested in actually spending money, they're just interested in making a lot of money. Yeah? Presumably because they think that that is a value in the eyes of others. They're somehow successful. All of this is conceit. It goes very, very deep. Then there's envy. And, I was going to say conceit. Yeah, conceit. You can bring it on the spiritual life. I mean, all of these you bring onto the spiritual life with you anyway. But with conceit, you can even get competitive in terms of the spiritual life. You can get sort of meditation competitiveness, can't you? Where somebody sits on longer than everybody else in the shrine room, sort of gritting their teeth, but with a fixed smile on their face because they want to be the last ones. I was at Adhisthana on a sort of retreat come meeting last week, and I happened to be the last one in the shrine room. I wasn't trying to be the last one in the shrine room, but I happened to be the last one in the shrine room. And eventually I opened my eyes and I looked around and I was the last. I realised and there was a certain sort of pleasure. Subtly they sort of come into the Dharma, into our Dharma lives. Envy. I mean, have you felt envious of somebody else's dharmic qualities, spiritual qualities? When somebody in the ordination training, you know, you go on retreat, and then some people might be invited to join the order, and other people haven't been yet. You know, if you stick at it long enough, you always will be able to join the order, providing you're practicing. But you can sometimes see that even amongst people who want to join the order, which is all about committing yourself to the three jewels, committing yourself to a life of service and altruism, people get envious about, she's been invited or he's been invited and I haven't. So envy can go very, very deep as well. It's a mixture of craving and hatred. The other person's got something that you want, a quality or something, and you hate them for it. So that's envy. And lastly, there's ignorance. And by ignorance, I don't just mean that you don't know everything that ChatGPT does. It's ignorance in the basic spiritual sense. It's ignorance about what it is to be a conscious human being, what consciousness is, and what is really to think that we know it all. Yeah. So that adds another layer of another barrier onto our ignorance. If we could acknowledge our ignorance, if we could really stand in wonder and say, I do not know what's going on. When I open my eyes and I look out, there's a sense of, I do not know. I do not know. If we could acknowledge our ignorance, we would be close to wisdom. But instead, we live in a culture where we don't do that. We just say, oh yeah, I know what's going on. Yeah? I know what's going on for me. And what's more, I know what's going on for you. And I'll tell you what you should be doing with your life. And I tell you where you're going wrong. And I tell you what's wrong with this country. And I know how to fix it. And if only the politicians would listen to me, I've got the right answers. We are so full of opinions and views. They're spreading like a contagious disease amongst us in society. And it adds another level of delusion to the ignorance, the basic spiritual ignorance that I am a fixed, separate entity in a world of that's separate and fixed out there. So 5 of these spokes represent these 5 poisons of hatred, of craving, of envy, of what else was there? Conceit, and of ignorance, spiritual ignorance. And then the other 5 are the 5 wisdoms of the 5 Buddhas. So the hatred is transformed into the wisdom of Akshobhya, which penetrates into reality and sees things just as they are, just as they are. It's said to be like a mirror, his wisdom, a mind that reflects anything that comes before it, doesn't distort it. So a non-distorting, clear, bright mirror is Akshobhya's wisdom. The craving is transformed into Amitabha's wisdom of, well, it's said to be the wisdom of discrimination that sees everything in its uniqueness. Every phenomenon is unique. So it's not that when Buddhism says that things are non-dual, that everything becomes one in some undifferentiated way. Each one of us, but each moment in our lives, every moment in this cosmos, is a unique coming together of an infinite number of conditions, never to be repeated. And Amitabha's wisdom discriminates and sees the uniqueness in all things. The response, apparently, is love. But it sees very, very clearly, distinctly. Sometimes when you come out of meditation, I don't know if you've had this experience, particularly on retreat, you see everything very sharply. It's like suddenly you were short-sighted and you put on some glasses or lenses, and you see everything perfectly. You can look at you can look at some gravel on the ground or a tree or something. You can start to see every blade of grass or every sort of fringe of a leaf or something. It just starts standing out, and it's beautiful. But then you've also got Ratnasambhava's wisdom, which is the transformation of conceit, of pride. And Ratnasambhava's wisdom sees everything as the same. So you've got this uniqueness that Amitabha sees, and the sameness that Ratnasambhava sees. And what is that sameness? Ratnasambhava's wisdom sees everything as being of the same nature, which is empty. It's no nature. Everything is in flux and does not have any essence behind the flux. There is, as it were, just manifestations of energy, you could say. But even energy starts to sound like too fundamental principle. It's empty, it's shunya. Everything is seen as empty and shunya. Emptiness, of course, isn't a great word for it. You could say everything is seen as life manifesting. Everything is seen as a transformation of the energy of life. So Ratnasambhava sees that. And do you see how conceit, this comparison of self being better or worse or the same as, is transformed into this wisdom of sameness. And then there's envy, and Amoja Siddhi's wisdom is the transformation of envy, and his wisdom is always acting with compassion, and it's his name means infallible success. Infallible. His action will always succeed. It's a bit like the Vajra. He holds a double Vajra, which is like the Thunderbolt multiplied by a Thunderbolt, becoming unimaginably potent. He holds this double Vajra, and his action is always of compassion, and it always succeeds. So I guess envy, in a certain sense, stops us from acting out of compassion, and the energy of that is transformed into his infallible, successful action. The action of the enlightened mind is said to be mysterious. The Vajra is mysterious. It's not action that you can necessarily see. It's subtle. It's subtle. Action in Buddhism, remember, is body, speech and mind. When you do the metta bhavana and you wish somebody well, that is an action. It's a karmic action. And then the poison of ignorance is transformed by Vairocana's wisdom. Vairocana is the central Buddha at the centre of the mandala, this sun-like figure, blazing white light. He's a solar symbol, and his wisdom is the wisdom that sees the same reality everywhere. It's the wisdom of the Dharma Dhatu. There's no distinction. Everything is of the nature of reality, which you could say is enlightened in a certain sense. There is enlightenment everywhere. So the Vajra has all of that. It has the poisons at one end being transformed into the wisdoms at the other end. So that's you're holding in your hand samsara and nirvana and the process of transformation, or the potential for that transformation. You're holding unenlightenment and enlightenment, and at the centre of that, this unity that is, in a way, the primordial unity outside of time and space. You're holding all of that in your hand, and you're wielding it for the good. It's not just a symbol of wisdom, it's a symbol of compassion. So I want to just say one or two more things. Bhante, in his book on creative symbols of Tantric Buddhism, talks about wisdom as being destructive. Wisdom as being destructive. Why is wisdom destructive? Does anybody want to say while I take a drink? Why is wisdom destructive? What is it destroying? Yeah, Nadia.
Destroys the three lakshanas.
In what way does it destroy the three lakshanas?
What way? Wisdom sees through the false views of ignorance, ill will, and hatred.
Right. So they're the three poisons. The three lakshanas are something else, and it destroys them. That's right. It destroys them. It sees into their true nature and releases their energy. It destroys, you could say, all egotism. But egotism isn't just something that is a little part of us. What we're being asked to see through is the sort of empty nature of anything that we identify with. We're asked to, in a way, surrender, let go of all ways of identifying with ourselves or with anything. So that's quite a thing to do, particularly in the modern world where we're so keen to build up an identity. We're so keen, aren't we, to build up an identity in so many ways. And I can sort of understand that, particularly if you're young, in your teens, and you're trying to, or maybe in your 20s, or maybe in your 30s, I don't know. You're still trying to discover who you are, what sort of person you are, and you're trying to find your place in the world and your social group and so forth. And a lot of effort goes into, a lot of agonized effort goes into building up identities, doesn't it? Yeah. And these days, your identity can have a certain kudos to it, or it can be more valuable or more cool to have a certain identity and less cool to have another one. So there's a sort of competitive identity thing going on. Perversely, we can even make an identity out of pain, can't we? And we can create an identity that then we wear as a badge that is built out of pain or some sort of suffering. So all of that is, in a way, very understandable, particularly if you're 16. But if you want to aim at enlightenment, you're going to have to let go of all of that identification, yeah, including identifying as a person of a certain race, a certain gender, a certain sexuality, a sexual orientation, all of that, a job, a class, status, in any sort of way. You're being asked to see through the fabricated nature of that, the story behind that. It is just a story. You're asked to let go of it. Let go. The Vajra is destroying, you could say, any sense of who we are. So to wield the Vajra is to be without identity. And all the energy that's locked up into those constructions of I am this sort of person, and I like this sort of thing, and I hold these sorts of opinions, and I fight for these causes, and so on. All of that has to be let go of to unleash the energy. So that's quite a scary thing. Now that is going to require some Vajric qualities to do that. Vajra-like qualities. I think it's going to... what sort of qualities is that going to require for us to be prepared to let go of any of the known identity of who we are and to open up to something unknown? What sort of qualities?
Courage.
Yeah, who said that? Yeah, courage. Courage is a really important one. When you start practicing Buddhism properly, people don't say to you, oh, how courageous. They probably say, oh, that's nice. I hope that makes you a bit more relaxed. I used to go on these retreats when I was still working in the corporate world. I was starting to go on retreats that were helping me to, training retreats for ordination. And they would be turning me inside out and churning me up, and they would be the most demanding things, some of them. Or I would go on my first solitary retreat required courage. It was 2 weeks in the countryside in a very lovely place in Surrey. I mean, it wasn't, nothing can go wrong in Surrey in a way. But 2 weeks on my own, it required some courage to face yourself, to be on your own. I would go back to work and they said, did you have a lovely retreat? And I wanted to shake them with my Vajra-like thing and say, no! It was difficult. And I am courageous. So if you want to practice the Dharma, you will require courage. Ultimately, that turns into, in the enlightened mind, that turns into fearlessness. But for us, it's courage. Any other qualities that you'll need?
Faith.
Yes, faith. Why do you say faith?
Because you're going into something you don't know, you have to give up, but at the same time,
Yeah.
like you're unsure, but in a way also you do believe.
Yes, that's right. That there is something positive when you let go of the known.
Yeah.
So you cultivate faith, confidence, trust in something more, in the enlightened mind, embodied in the Buddha, embodied as Vajratilaya, embodied in all these forms. You have to develop confidence, otherwise we will not be able to let go fully. Yeah, faith. Any other? Yeah.
Humility?
Say more about that. That's interesting.
It's got a bit of a question mark on it.
No, it's true.
With all this power, maybe you're kind of aiming for something quite big, but also to give up on identity.
Yes. Yes, I think that's right. I think it's not, the Vajra isn't about building yourself up as some sort of superhero. It's not quite like that. It has humility to it, because you're trying to destroy egotism. And so you can't go around saying, look at me, how wonderful I am, I've destroyed my ego, everybody worship me. That sort of doesn't work, does it? It's interesting though, humility isn't something that you can, well, what did Gandhi say? Gandhi said something like, it's not a quality that you can cultivate, it emerges. Yeah, if you try and be humble, it's still egotism trying to be humble. So it's something that emerges. But wisdom will have that sort of humility to it. That doesn't mean that it will be a walkover, a pushover. Humility is something combined with power is something mysterious. Yeah, it doesn't mean that the Buddha wasn't a pushover. He could be fierce, really, really fierce, but there wouldn't have been some sort of conceit behind it. Yes?
Receptivity?
Yeah, receptivity. It's interesting, isn't it, that the Vajra, which is this force of hard, it's said to be of the nature of light, like the lightning flash is light. I sometimes think of a Vajra as like a laser beam that can cut through steel, but it's just light. It's coherent light, focused light, that is penetrating, but isn't hard. And in that sense, there's receptivity. Yeah, there's receptivity.
It's like a willingness to confront the truth.
Yeah, willingness to confront the truth. So it's receptivity combined with courage, combined with humility, combined with faith. All of those qualities are there as well. One or two more? Yeah.
Patience.
Yeah, why do you say patience?
Because if you add up everything you've been saying for the last hour, it's a big ask.
Yeah, it is. It's a big ask. So you've got to be patient with yourself, haven't you? You've got to be patient with yourself. But patience also, I would say, is it's a sort of realism that says, look, okay, this is where I am. It doesn't matter that. Well, how I kind of think of it is that, look, it doesn't matter that I'm not enlightened. I am, it's more important that I'm on a path moving in that direction. So in that sense, patience. But I think it's patience combined with another quality, which is determination. Yeah. So it's not a laissez-faire kind of attitude to our lives. It's a determined one. The Vajra is about determination, but also a realistic acceptance of where we are, without kind of overshooting ourselves. So there's a determination, a patience, and finally I want to add one more quality, which is intensity. I mean, the Vajra is an intense symbol of intense energy. If we're going to make a breakthrough into enlightenment, we will need to have situations of intensity in our Dharma practice, in our Dharma lives. It will not be enough to make if we're going to make a real breakthrough, it will not be enough just to practice once a week or to meditate for half an hour a day and think that is going to that's going to do it. we will need to create for ourselves, put ourselves into situations of intensity. Particularly if you're like me. Now, I think I'm not very self-motivated. I'm lazy, and I will just take the easy road if I can. And so what I have been fortunate enough to do is put myself into situations of intensity that demand more from me. So do that. Yeah. If you don't put yourself into situations of intensity, then you won't find that there's much growth. So by situations of intensity, I mean situations that are going to confront you with your limitations. Often that is to do with other people. Real spiritual friendship will confront you. A real spiritual friend will not let you get away with your blind spots or your things where you don't really want to practice. They'll point them out. Okay, I've gone way over time, but I do want to just touch on this figure of Vajrakilaya. So Vajrakilaya, when you come and have a look at him, he's incredible. He particularly is a symbol for, he's the figure that overcomes obstacles to the Dharma, and what he does is he pins them down with his demon dagger and converts the energy in them to enlightened, to an aid to enlightenment. In two of his hands, so he's got 6 arms. In two of the hands, he's holding Vajras. In the front 2 arms, he's holding this demon dagger. In his left upper arm, he's holding a mass of flame, a fiery ball that he might hurl at you. And in the second left arm, he's holding a katvanga, the staff, the trident, with 3 severed heads on. He's got 4 legs, he's powerfully built. He's got 4 legs with, huge claws that are standing on these 2 converted demons. He's in sexual union with his consort, Dipta Chakra, who, she just does have the normal number of limbs, but she also is holding a skull cup out of which she's drinking nectar, which is also blood, and also holding a trident with 3 severed heads. She's wearing a garland of skulls. He's wearing a garland of severed heads. If you look closely, he's got 3 heads, each with 3 eyes. She's just got 1 head, but it does have 3 eyes. He's got an elephant skin on his back. He's got an elephant skin on his back, a flayed elephant skin, which symbolizes his overcoming of ignorance. If you look closely in the right place, you'll see an elephant head. He's got a flayed human skin with bits of human limbs, you can see, which symbolizes his overcoming any fear of death. He wears a tiger skin round his like a loincloth. I don't know what the tiger skin symbolizes. She wears a leopard skin. It's just it's a figure of awesome power and sublimity that will overcome. And yes, his 2 central hands, the Kila, that's where he gets his name. He's a Vajra Kila. Kila is like this dagger, this nail that pins you down. He's Vajrakilaya. Come and have a look at him. That's the sort of energy. He is enlightened compassion energy that is overcoming all obstacles in the world that are inimical to the Dharma. All the forces, and of course, ultimately those forces are within us. And we have to overcome them. In order to overcome them, we have to find within ourselves, maybe outside of ourselves, everything that will help us transform them. We have to, in a way, worship Vajrakilaya and ask for his blessings, ask for his energy and support, so that we can one day learn to wield the Vajra for ourselves. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.